Hey friends, and welcome to another installment of Q&A. I'm Carolyn, the writer behind Beauty Beyond Bones, and I am so glad that you're here. I'm fielding your questions about anything and everything, so let's get to it. Okay, first question. What is my daily routine? Well, this is kind of a fun one. Honestly, as a blogger and an actor, every day is different. So why don't I just tell you what I did yesterday? I wake up every morning at 8 o'clock, and the first thing I do is get breakfast cooking. And so while that's going, I'll go and I'll get ready to work out. I like to move my body in some way every day. So I typically, will go jogging for 30 minutes, or I'll take a nice walk in the morning and listen to a podcast or a sermon. But before I go, I always slather on the sunscreen, brush my teeth, put on my workout clothes, all that stuff. And then I'll scarf down breakfast, answer the comments that came in overnight, and then hit the road. And then once I get home, I wash my face, chug literally a liter of water, and then sit down to work. So typically every single day I have to film an audition video that my agent sends. So that involves learning the lines, setting up the lighting and the equipment, filming, editing, and then sending it in, which takes, start to finish a couple hours. And after that, I will make lunch. I've been really into my butternut squash pudding lately. And then it's time to sit down and crank out a blog post, which can be super emotionally draining. Depending on my mood, it'll either come out spunky or emo or deep or funny. It really just depends on the day. And then it's time for editing, proofing, formatting, uploading, recording, and promoting it on all the socials. So by this time, it's around 4:30 or 5. So then I shift my attention to email. I try and reach out to at least a few brands for sponsorship inquiries every day. And at this time, I'll also go through my acting submissions and send my headshot and resume in for different roles. And that takes me to dinner time around 6:30 or 7. After eating dinner, it's time for doing social media. Promoting a blog is hard work because without eyes, you have no job. So I format, engage, plan ahead, and all that stuff across Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. And then finally, around 8:30, I have some me time, which usually consists of watching a YouTube video or doing a face mask or calling a friend. Sometimes I'll go and grab a drink with a friend. Last night, I actually went and saw King Lear on Broadway, which was fun, but definitely out of the norm. And then I try and go to bed before midnight. So that's my day. Being a blogger is definitely not what most people think. You are always working, which I guess is why you really gotta love it, which I do. Okay, next question. How do you stay so positive and keep your trust in God when things seem impossible? So this is a tough question. I've definitely gone through a lot of really dark seasons in my life, from anorexia to being on bed rest for 8 months with my ulcerative colitis to my mom's stroke. And honestly, this might come across as super cheesy, but looking back, the only way I got through it was that Jesus carried me through it. I mean, I couldn't and didn't do it on my own. I couldn't. I think there are seasons when life is just too much to bear, and you just have to throw your hands up and surrender and say, Lord, I need you to be my strength. And then somehow you make it through that moment, and then that afternoon, and then that day, and then that week, and then little by little you're doing it. Or rather, God is giving you the grace you need in that moment to make it through. And staying positive, it's not gonna all be positive, but I think keeping the perspective that you're not alone in your suffering, that Jesus has gone before you and has already endured the greatest suffering possible and is with you in what you're going through. I mean, I would just envision Jesus, the Good Shepherd, carrying the broken little lamb in his arms. You know, I was that little lamb, and I would just cling with all my might, with white knuckles, to my Father for strength and perseverance. And at the end of the day, God hears your cry and is loving you through it, even if you don't feel it. He's carrying you through your most difficult times. All right, next question. How long have I been a believer? I am a bona fide cradle Catholic. I've been a believer my entire life. I think my faith was really set on fire when I went to a Christian sports camp in 4th grade to 10th grade. But then it was really solidified to what it is today when I brought Jesus into my recovery and received his forgiveness and love at inpatient treatment. But, you know, I was really blessed to grow up in a really strong Christian family, and so they instilled in me the importance of faith from a very young age. So, okay, last question. What are my thoughts on binge eating in recovery? Gosh, binge eating in recovery. Now, this is going to seem a little bit controversial perhaps, but I think that recovering from an eating disorder, anorexia in particular, I think that binge eating is a phase that just about everyone will have to go through. And it's a terrible phase that causes so much guilt and shame and feelings of disgust. But here's the thing. I think it's a natural response to the stress your body endured during the eating disorder. I mean, think about it. Your body was in starvation mode for months, if not years in my case. I mean, that pendulum had swung all the way in one direction to the most extreme. Here's the thing. Your body was designed to keep you alive. I mean, think back to the caveman time. I mean, we had to hunt and gather our food. We had to survive the winter. And so the body learned how to protect itself. Hence why there's starvation mode, when the body shuts off every unnecessary system in order to keep you alive. I mean, your metabolism slows to a halt, and your body instinctively holds on to every calorie for dear life in attempts to keep you alive. Your reproductive system shuts off. You grow a fine layer of hair all over your body. I mean, your body is literally consuming itself to stay alive. So the body's response to that severe starvation is then to feast on anything and everything in sight when you finally give your body the green light to start eating again. And why? Because it's trying to keep you alive. And surprise, surprise, the body doesn't trust you not to starve it again. So it feasts, thinking that another winter is coming. And that is precisely why I am not a supporter of the mini-mod system of recovery, and instead advocate for a medically supervised recovery where professionals can help you ease back into eating calorically sound intakes with proper meal plans and tapering in, because otherwise refeeding syndrome can be a fatal reality with the shock and stress of a sudden influx of food and what that has on a starving body. But back to binging, I mean, it's something that 99% of people will experience in recovery, because just as far as the pendulum swung in that one direction, it will swing equally as far in the other. And it can honestly be so detrimental to girls in recovery, as it will just make them want to restrict the next day or compulsively exercise or even purge. But I mean, the important thing is to just stay consistent with adequate nutrition, and also to identify any triggering emotions or foods that you know will lead to a binge. And then to have people you trust help support you through it. I mean, being open about these things is scary because there's so much shame involved, but having people who you can call or count on in those times of desperation, it really makes a huge difference. And if you're wondering, yes, I did go through a season where I struggled with binge eating, and it was awful. It was awful. And I'll link a post down below about how I got through it, along with some worksheets and resources that help in the process. But there you go with this week's video. I hope those questions were helpful or insightful. And if you have a question that you would like answered in an upcoming video, please comment below or DM me on Instagram at beauty.beyond.bones or shoot me an email. And as always, thank you for your support. I literally could not do this without you. So I hope you had a great Memorial Day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on the blog.